My name is Kareen Manish, and I am here today with Each One Teach One program. Each One Teach One is a program that is geared towards financial literacy. I became involved with the program in 2019 and am passionate about educating and empowering people through knowledge and a better understanding of their own finances, regardless of where you bank. With my position as a financial services advisor, I see the financial struggles, and with the cost of living continuing to rise, it's getting harder to keep up. Believe me, if you are feeling overwhelmed, you are not alone. Today, we will learn about debt smarts. Please feel free to ask any questions as we go along by emailing, and we will return your email at our most earliest convenience. Remember, there is no such thing as a dumb question. The only way we learn is by asking questions. What will you learn today? We're going to learn some tips to manage your debt, when it makes sense to get a consolidation loan, the difference between a consumer proposal and a bankruptcy, and much more. We all want to protect ourselves and our family from debt. According to recent Statistics Canada research, Canadians carry more debt today than we ever have. So if you have debt, you are not alone. And again, please remember, email any questions that you have. What are debt smarts? Borrowing money to help improve your financial health when you're struggling to pay creditors. Have you ever heard the expression good debt and bad debt? Good debt is borrowing that is future focused. Some examples would be a mortgage, student loan, RRSP, TFSA, RESP. Certain kinds of debts, like investing in a new home or career, can often improve your financial health in the long run. For example, spending money now on your education may mean in the future that you have more earning potential. Can you think of any examples of bad debts? Financially challenging debt would be borrowing to buy things that you consume or only have short-term value, such as vacations, electronics, eating out, fashion. Debts you take on to make short-term purchases of goods and services that don't appreciate in value. For example, if you wanted to buy a new outfit or go out to eat at a nice restaurant, you make the purchase on your credit card, but you don't have the funds to pay off the credit card at the end of the month. Then you are taking on bad debt. Because electronics, like a new TV or paying for a vacation, don't have any long-term financial value. It's usually a bad idea to borrow money to make these purchases. It's better to save the money for them and then make the purchase. There are many signs that it may be time to consider debt management alternatives. If you are struggling to make minimum payments, or if you're regularly only able to make minimum payments, you may have debt problems. Similarly, if you are uncertain about the total amount of debt you actually owe, it might be time to take a more serious look at your finances and come up with a plan to deal with your debts. A few of the signs of debt problems are: 1, making minimum payments on your credit cards. 2, using overdraft protection as regular cash flow. 3, using credit card cash advances. 4, borrowing money from payday lenders. 5, debt collectors are calling. 6, being uncertain of one's total debt. 7, using one loan to pay another. 8, considering consolidating debts. 9, having wages garnished or your assets seized. 10, living near the limit on credit cards. 11, missing payments. You have rights. Even though you have debts, you still have legal protections and rights as a debtor. Here are a few things to keep in mind. It should never cost money to discuss some debt-solving options. Representatives of your financial institution will gladly talk to you about your options. They are invested in your success and the ability to manage your debts. You can start the process with as simple as a phone call or an email. Your RRSPs are protected. You should not need to liquidate your RRSPs to pay debt. Even in bankruptcy, usually only the last 12 months paid into your RRSP will be surrendered. There are no protections on TFSAs or RESPs in a bankruptcy. In the event of a consumer proposal, RRSPs and RESPs are protected unless cashing them in was part of your accepted offer to your creditors. If you find yourself in a situation where you are struggling with debt, please don't despair. There are options available to you. In fact, it is recommended that you follow this 6-step plan for dealing with debt. For the remainder of this presentation, we will be looking at each of these steps closely and explain how they can help you get control of your debt. Step 1, negotiate with your creditors. The first step in dealing with debt and the best thing to do before seeking credit counseling services is to meet with your financial institution and/or your creditors directly. Your creditors want to be repaid, so they will make the time to meet with you. Your creditors might be able to offer a lower interest rate or offer to consolidate your debts into one loan that will be much easier and less expensive to manage. Always seek advice from reputable sources, such as financial advisors and staff at your local financial institution. Unfortunately, negotiating with creditors does not always work and may not always be to your benefit. A creditor is not obligated to negotiate new terms. Step 2, ask your financial institution about a consolidation loan. A consolidation loan gathers all of your debts together into one manageable debt with a single interest rate and a single scheduled payment. Basically, your financial institution pays off your debts, and in return, you make a single monthly payment to your financial institution. However, getting a consolidation loan isn't always the best course of action. In order for you to save money, it has to have a lower interest rate than the outstanding debts. A consolidation loan in general will have a positive effect on your credit rating. It is also easier to manage than many loans and many different credit card payments. Depending on the situation, your financial institution might make it a condition of credit to not get any other loans, or ask that you lower credit card limits or even cancel some of your credit cards so not to risk everything getting out of control again. A consolidation loan makes sense when your debt servicing becomes more manageable and costs you less money. It can also help you pay off your debts quicker. If a consolidation loan reduces your overall interest rate and costs, it's a better alternative than continuing trying to struggle making minimum payments on multiple loan products with higher interest rates. For example, someone comes in with $40,500 in debt. The minimum monthly payment for us to debt service any credit card balance is 3%. Therefore, minimum monthly payments for all 4 of these lending vehicles is $1,170. If I were to consolidate these debts into one loan at a rate of 6.85%, and I take their vehicle as security, I term the loan out over 5 years or 60 months. I would be lowering their monthly payment by $370.91 and saving them $3,022 in interest. Remember that the cost without consolidation would mean you don't charge anything additional to those credit cards during the time that you're paying it off. True or false? My bank won't give me a consolidation loan, so my next step must be credit counseling or bankruptcy. False. Before you go that route, why not consider taking the initiative to become your own debt manager? There are many ways that you can serve as your own debt manager. By taking a few proactive steps and by sticking to your plan, you can manage your own debt without the help of third parties. Remember, you are your own best advocate. First, contact your creditors and lenders. Figure out what your best income outcome will be. Then figure out exactly how much you can afford to pay each month towards your debt. You are going to need a budget to figure this out. Ask creditors to reduce your interest rate and to agree to structured monthly payments that you can afford. Some of these programs may be for the life of the debt or for a set period of time, even 6 or 12 months, after which rates will return to normal. Every creditor has different policies. Go get some free consultations. Make an appointment with credit counseling companies or a trustee in bankruptcy that offers free consultations. You do not need a referral to speak with a credit counselor, and there should not be any fee to have a discussion. If you meet in person, take a spouse or a friend where appropriate. 2 minds paying attention during this time can be helpful. Taking notes during all consultations and any phone calls with creditors and lenders, because it can be a lot of information to take in and can get confusing. Next, set up auto payments. Many creditors will require you to agree to auto payments as a condition of enrollment. Even if it isn't required, auto payments can be a great help as it helps prevent late or missed payments. If you default while on a creditor's program, they have the right to remove you and are not obligated to re-enroll you. Next, don't apply for any new credit. Some creditors will require that you do not take on any new unsecured debt while the terms of your agreement are in effect. Next, monitor your accounts. Your balance should be going down steadily. Pay close attention to your balance, payments, and interest rates. Your credit card statement will calculate the number of years required to pay off the debt. And last, stick to your budget. Step 3, debt management program. Debt management programs are offered by third-party organizations that help you manage your debts. They can help with repay debts with one manageable monthly payment. They can save thousands of dollars in interest. Explore all options to help get rid of debt and regain financial stability. Effectively manage all bills and living expenses. Reduce and eliminate interest expenses from credit cards. They can help you avoid bankruptcy, stop the collection calls, and become debt-free and start saving for your future. How do debt management programs work? A credit counselor will contact your creditors and ask for their cooperation. Creditors usually agree to put your debt management plan to work since some money from you is better than no money. Some may agree to reduce or eliminate interest and fees on your debts. Not all debts are covered by this type of program. Secure debts like your vehicle loan or mortgage are not covered. Some organizations may charge fees for a debt management program. This is normal and is legal. The fees must be outlined in the contract. The fees will be included in your monthly payment to the agency. You should research the costs and services of at least 2 programs before you agree to the terms of a company. It can be a very stressful time, but the decision you make now can have a long-lasting impact on you. So take the time to find a program that you feel 100% comfortable with. True or false? Companies that promise to fix or repair a bad credit rating are a good choice of debt management support. False. Beware of companies advertising that they can fix or repair your credit. It is impossible for them to change or erase accurate information in your credit report. The only way to improve your credit rating is to show your creditors that your payment habits have improved and that you are being responsible about paying back your debt. Stage 1, credit counseling. The first stage of a debt management program is called credit counseling. It helps individuals reduce and eliminate their debts through education, budgeting, and a variety of tools that can include negotiating with creditors. It involves a free consultation and meeting with a credit counselor to discuss the possibility of a debt consolidation, as well as repayment and settlement programs. Your counselor will work on your behalf to deal with your creditors. Here are the key facts for credit counseling. 1, it's free and confidential to speak with a credit counselor. They are also known as bankruptcy trustees, even if you do not declare bankruptcy. 2, it is common to reduce your debt by up to 70%. 3, it may help you avoid bankruptcy. You can legally settle your debts for less than you owe without declaring bankruptcy. Virtually all unsecured debts can be addressed, including CRA tax debts. 4, it will allow you to keep your assets. If your proposal gives a better return to creditors than if you went bankrupt, you are not required to surrender your assets to be sold. 5, it will stop interest and finance charges. From the date you file, your debts are frozen. 6, it will prevent your wages from being garnished. If your proposal is accepted, all unsecured creditors are bound by the terms and conditions of the proposal, and they cannot take any action to seize assets or garnish wages. 7, it will prevent serious credit damage due to default. Credit counseling may be a possible solution for dealing with debt problems, but it's not perfect. For one, it does not guarantee that you'll be able to make a deal with your creditors. There are also fees involved in hiring a debt management company to assist you in dealing with your debt. There are many reasons to be cautious about credit counseling. There's a whole industry of companies that take advantage of people who feel vulnerable because of their debts. One, be very cautious about companies that guarantee that they can negotiate a deal with your creditors so that you will only have to pay a portion of your debt. This process is called debt settlement or debt negotiation. Only licensed trustees can perform debt settlement. 2, don't go with companies that are aggressive or use high pressure tactics over the phone, promising to cut large amounts of your debt. Some creditors may not even agree to participate in debt negotiations, much less reduce debts. 3, be aware of some companies that misrepresent their services as being part of a government-sanctioned program. 4, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Don't sign or agree to any service of this type before researching the company and checking with sources you trust. Your provincial government's Office for Consumer Affairs is a good place to start. 5, be cautious of upfront fees. 6, if the debt reduction company tells you cut all contact with your creditors and let them handle it, this is a red flag. Stay in touch with your creditors to make sure payments are being made. You will pay the debt management company, well, then they pay the debtor your debts on your behalf. But what happens if they don't? Or what happens if they pay late? Are you the one held responsible? 7, do not provide a power of attorney to a debt management company. You should ask these questions when you're looking into credit counseling. Does the agency suggest or require a proposal or a written plan? Is money management training provided? A good credit counseling service should provide you with training and education regarding financial planning to help reduce risk for future debt problems. Are statements provided? Can debts be repaid outside of the plan? Reputable agencies will not charge you money to answer questions about their services. Ask what kind of fees are going to be involved. A consultation fee, application fee, maintenance fees, membership fee, fee per creditor. Are there other fees or costs? And are the fees negotiable? True or false? Creditors often accept less than half of the money that is owed to them when they receive a consumer proposal. True. When you file a consumer proposal, you agree to pay a portion of what you owe, and your creditors agree to forgive the balance. Do you know why your creditors accept a consumer proposal that gives them less than the full amount of what is owed? The answer is that most creditors will accept a consumer proposal because they know the alternative is that you will likely file for bankruptcy and they will get none or less of the money than they are owed in that situation. Getting 30 cents on the dollar is better than nothing. A consumer proposal is a formal, legally binding process where you offer to pay creditors a percentage of what is owed to them, and they forgive the balance, or you ask them that they extend the time you have to pay off your debts. Some pros for a consumer proposal are: it provides you peace of mind. It allows you to keep your assets. It prevents you from being sued by creditors. It stops interest fees. It allows you to avoid finance charges. Cons of a consumer proposal: it's not a guaranteed deal with your creditors. It keeps you in debt longer sometimes. Fees apply, and it has a negative impact on your credit rating. There are many advantages to filing a consumer proposal. A consumer proposal allows you to reduce your debt by up to 70%. It can help you avoid bankruptcy, allowing you to legally settle your debts for less than you owe. Virtually all unsecured debts can be addressed. It offers some of the same protections as a bankruptcy, but has a less severe impact on your credit rating. A consumer proposal will be removed from your credit report 3 years after you've paid all debt according to the proposal, or 6 years from the date which you filed, whichever comes first. A proposal allows you to keep your assets. If your proposal gives a better return to a creditor than if you went bankrupt, you are not required to surrender your assets to be sold. It avoids interest and finance charges from the date you file. It stops your wages from being garnished. If your proposal is accepted, all unsecured creditors are bound by the terms of the proposal, and they cannot take any action to seize assets or garnish wages. You can also pay in full at any time and without penalty. How it works? First, meet with your trustee. Your trustee files the proposal on your behalf. Once the proposal has been filed, your creditors have 45 days to consider and vote on whether or not they accept your proposal. If the majority of your creditors accept the proposal, it becomes legally binding on all creditors. Every month, you make a payment to your trustee, who in turn pays your creditors on your behalf. After you've made your last payment, you get a certificate of full performance. During this time, you'll be required to attend 2 financial counseling sessions. Costs. There is a fee to file that has to be paid to the superintendent of bankruptcy. The administrator is entitled to be paid. The fees are taken from the monthly payment you make, so you do not pay anything over and above that monthly amount. Normally, a proposal is monthly payments for 5 years, but again, it can be paid out early. True or false? If I declare bankruptcy, I lose everything I own, but all of my debts are cleared. False. This is false for 2 reasons. First, you do not lose any items that are considered legally exempt. For most people who go bankrupt, the most important exemptions are limited amounts of food and heating fuel, health aids, clothing, furniture, your vehicle. If it is leased, you must continue to make lease payments. If you own it outright, you might be able to keep it depending on its value. Your home. Laws are slightly different in each province, but the basic concept is the same. You can't keep a home in bankruptcy if you have a lot of equity in it at the time you go bankrupt. A certain amount of equity is exempt in a bankruptcy. In Alberta, it is currently $40,000. The tools of your trade: farmland, animals, equipment, and supplies, pensions or retirements. Retirement savings are complicated. In most cases, you can lose your RRSPs, but there are exemptions when the RRSP is owned by an employer pension plan. A trustee will help determine if your retirements are exempt. If you file for bankruptcy, you will still need to meet the following financial obligations: mortgage, car loans, alimony, spousal or child support payments, and court fines. Before you decide whether to make a consumer proposal or declare bankruptcy, the trustee will perform an assessment. The purpose of the assessment is to evaluate your financial situation and to explain the options available to you and to discuss the merits and consequences of your choice. Bankruptcy is a legal status of a person or entity that cannot repay the debts it owes to creditors. It means being declared in law as unable to pay your debts. The reason people file for bankruptcy is that it immediately stops creditors from taking your wages. It offers protection in situations in which you're not able to meet financial obligations. It is considered the very last resort for people dealing with problems related to their financial debt. Declaring bankruptcy is a complicated process and shouldn't be entered into lightly. Some additional things to think about when you're considering bankruptcy. Once you've filed for bankruptcy, you must give total control of your finances to the bankruptcy trustee. You will have to surrender your credit cards. You will have to surrender many of your assets and belongings of value. You will have to report your household income and living expenses to the trustee every month and send along copies of your pay stubs. You will have to attend 2 credit counseling sessions. The bankruptcy will remain on your credit bureau for 6 years after it is discharged. If you borrow more than $1,000, you must tell the creditor that you are in an undischarged bankruptcy. Failure to do this could result in jail. Some of the most important things to ask and consider are: what will I be required to do in my bankruptcy? How much will it cost? What will I lose and what will I keep? And how will bankruptcy affect my spouse? Bankruptcy costs. The cost of bankruptcy is similar to the cost of filing a consumer proposal. There is a filing fee to be paid to the superintendent of bankruptcy. The trustee of your bankruptcy is also entitled to be paid. You are required to attend counseling sessions at an additional cost. Until you are discharged, a portion of earnings above a certain level, what's called surplus income, must be turned over to the trustee for distribution to creditors. The government decided that the more you make, the more you will be required to pay while you are bankrupt. You are allowed to keep a portion of your income that is reasonable to cover normal living expenses, your surplus income limit or threshold. Whatever you earn above that amount, you are required to pay half to the trustee. When you file for bankruptcy, the size of your payments and the length of time before your debts will be discharged is determined by a host of factors, including your income, and the size of your household. The total cost to you will vary depending on your income. If you earn under $2,152 per month, the government requires that you pay $200 a month for a total of 9 months, meaning the total cost to you will be $1,800. If your income is over $2,152 a month, the government requires you to pay a minimum of $500 a month. Additionally, you will be required to make payments for 21 months. So the minimum cost to discharge your debt will be $10,500. If you make more than the $2,152 per month, you will be required to make a surplus income payment, which the government calculates by subtracting the threshold from your total monthly income and multiplying it by 50%. So this is just kind of an example. Again, everything is dependent on which province you live in, and things are always changing. So if you're ever considering this option, please talk to a trustee, look on the internet, see what you can find out about what the current amounts are. So this example, Sarah lives on her own. She makes $18 an hour for 40 hours per week. Her take home after taxes is $2,400. She's paid twice per month, so semi-monthly. So her household income is $2,400 minus the government's threshold at that time was $2,355. So her income over the threshold is $45. Multiply that by the 50%. So her surplus income she has to pay to the trustee is $22.50. In the next example, again, Simon lives on his own. He makes $18 an hour for 40 hours a week. His take home after taxes is $2,400. And then some months it's $3,600. This is because he's paid bi-weekly. So some months he will get 3 paychecks. So as you can see, in April and May, he earned $2,400, but in June, he gets that additional paycheck, and so he gets $3,600. The government threshold remains the same for all 3 months. So in April and May, his surplus income is the $45, but in June, his surplus income is $1,245 because he earned that extra paycheck. His surplus to pay in May and April are $22.50, but in June, his surplus is $622.50. So for comparisons, for percentage of debt paid, for credit counseling, you're expected to repay all of your original debt. For a consumer proposal, it typically requires approximately 30% of the original debts to be repaid. In a bankruptcy, there is no set percentage. Your payments will be based on your income and your assets that are not exempt. For interest, for credit counseling, the interest on your debts is typically frozen as a result of the negotiations undertaken on your behalf by your credit counselor, but it's not guaranteed. In a consumer proposal and a bankruptcy, interest is frozen by law. Monthly payments. For credit counseling, there is no maximum limit on your monthly payments. Monthly payments are usually higher than in any other situation because the expectation is that you will still repay 100% of your debt. For a consumer proposal, your monthly payment will be 30% to 50% of your original debt repayments paid over 5 years. For a bankruptcy, your monthly payments are determined by the government. Your income level and your family size are taken into consideration when determining your monthly payments. Administration costs. Credit counseling, The fees and administrative costs for hiring a credit counseling agency are going to vary by agency. Typically, you will be paying consulting fees, monthly monitoring costs, and other fees on top of your monthly repayment amount. For a consumer proposal, the administrative cost of a consumer proposal is included in your monthly payment. You pay them, but they are hidden. In a bankruptcy, the administrative costs for filing bankruptcy are set by the government and determined by family income. Impact on credit rating. Your credit rating will be affected for 2 to 3 years after your last payment if you do credit counseling. For a consumer proposal, your credit rating will be affected for 3 years after your final payment. In a bankruptcy, your credit rating will be affected for 6 years after your bankruptcy is discharged. Time. For credit counseling, the length of time to settle a debt through credit counseling varies. However, it's often about 5 years. For a consumer proposal, your debt repayment is scheduled over 5 years, but a proposal can be paid out at any time prior to the 5-year time period. For a bankruptcy, for a first-time bankruptcy, it takes either 9 months or 21 months, depending on the income level of the person filing. Advisors' qualifications for credit counseling, they are professionally trained. They must be certified through the Accredited Counselor of Canada program administered by the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education. Consumer proposal administrators are licensed trustees of the federal government and must comply with a code of ethics and rules of professional conduct established by the government. In a bankruptcy, bankruptcy trustees are licensed by the federal government and overseen by the Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy. They must comply to a code of ethics and professional conduct. Creditor agreement. This slide shows the differences you should expect in creditor agreements depending on whether you choose credit counseling, consumer proposal, or bankruptcy. There are 2 important things to note here. There is no legally binding agreement between the debtor and creditor in the case of credit counseling, whereas both consumer proposal and bankruptcy are legally binding on all parties. For credit counseling, consumer proposal, and bankruptcy all have different expectations regarding the amount of the original debt that will be required to be repaid. The best way to avoid debt problems is to carefully manage the kind of debts you take on. Remember the difference between good and bad debt. Remember the difference between wants and needs. Most of us can't avoid debt, but we can avoid letting debt run our lives. To avoid debt problems, we recommend you consider the following strategies. 1, track and manage expenses with a household budget and stick to it. 2, pay for wants with cash. Only use credit cards when cash is immediately available to repay the credit card. 3, leave your credit card at home. 4, decrease the credit limit on your credit cards. 5, get a low interest credit card if you are eligible. 6, set up automatic bill payments with your financial institution. This will help avoid late payments. 7, avoid impulse purchases. 8, look at the minimum payment box on your credit card statement. It calculates how many years it would take to pay off your debt. Always pay more than the minimum required amount. So we've basically finished our presentation. We went over some tips to manage your debt, when it makes sense to get a consolidation loan, the difference between a consumer proposal and a bankruptcy. We thank you for joining. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the branch and or email the branch. Again, we are happy to help in any way we can.